Morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. I want to welcome you to today's event, sponsored by the Encore Network. As we're waiting for others to join us today, we invite you to go to the chat and let us know where you're from and what your affiliation is. And if you'd like to connect with others, your email or LinkedIn profile as well. Like to connect and we'll that'll give you a way to do that. We'll also send you the chat later on so that you don't need to write everything down. We also ask that you mute yourself, and I hear some background noise right now, so please be sure that you're muted. And use the chat not only to connect with each other, but also to raise questions or make comments throughout the event. My name is Doug Dixon. I'm secretary and co-founder of the Encore Network, and I'd like to officially welcome you to today's event. And I am hearing some background noise, so please be certain that you're muted. We will be recording today's event. In fact, we're recording right now, and we'll continue throughout the event. And the reason for that is that we will send you a copy of the recording, as well as resources, either those that are mentioned or those that are being offered by members of our panel, and a follow-up email, which will arrive probably on Friday. So you can take notes, but you don't need to take notes. And anything that you record in the chat will be saved, and we'll be sharing that as well. So there will be a lot of follow-up information that we'll be sending your way. We would like to thank our sponsors for today's event, the Del Mar Encore Fellows Initiative of the Dayton Foundation, which harnesses the talent of older adults to aid nonprofits. And also Resource, which is a national recruitment agency focusing on eliminating age bias. So thank you to both of our sponsors of today's event. The mission of the Encore Network is to champion the civic, social, and economic contributions of people over 50. And we're excited in line with that mission to present today's program, which is an exploration of the impact of artificial intelligence on older workers. And we're proud to partner with the representatives of the organizations that are a part of our panel today. The panel will be moderated by Ramona Schindelheim, who is editor-in-chief of Working Nation, which is a media organization that focuses on the future of work, on workplace issues, and those that are, please please mute yourself. Those who are sidelined or left out of the world of work, including in many cases older workers and older job seekers. She and her team have written extensively on the topic of AI as well as other related topics, and we're thrilled to welcome her. And she will introduce other members of the panel. So Ramona, over to you.
Thank you very much, Doug, and hello to everybody. I really appreciate the turnout. And this, I believe, as we all do, is a very important issue. There was an AARP survey that I'm sure everybody's seen, that 2/3 of all older adults, 50 plus, think that there's age bias already in the workplace. So given that and the emergence of AI in the workforce, this is a very important conversation to be had. I thought you couldn't talk about AI without using AI. So I put in to Google and I said, what is AI? I asked them to tell me what it was. And so AI, their definition is, AI wrote this, by the way. AI stands for artificial intelligence, referring to the ability of computer systems to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as learning, problem solving, and decision making. So that's how they say it's impacting us. They say that it can benefit us by automating tasks, making predictions, analyzing data. The limitations: creativity, emotional intelligence, judgment, common sense, contextual understanding, which I actually thought was a pretty good definition of what it can do and what it can't do. Regardless of what it can and cannot do, it's here. It's here to stay. A new study this morning from LinkedIn, said 70% of the skills used in most jobs. Okay, can you hear me now? Not, yes, thank you. 70% of the skills used in most jobs will change with AI emerging as a catalyst, and already it is the #1 skill that new jobs are listing. So obviously already very important, already in an area where we already feel that there is not a level playing field. So let's talk about it. And I wanted to get Alex, who's with JFF, Jobs for the Future, who runs the AI lab there, AI Intelligence Lab, to start us out by talking about what she is seeing now in the emergence of this technology in the workplace.
Yeah, thanks, Ramona, and thanks so much to the Encore Network. It's wonderful to be with all of you. We've got a really terrific panel conversation for you today. I mean, I think we're both seeing a lot and seeing the fact that it's still very early, even as this transformation is accelerating very, very quickly. One of the things that's a watchword for us is that it's still not yet necessarily reaching everybody. So as folks on the call may know, Jobs for the Future is a nonprofit working nationally across the United States to connect people to economic opportunity, particularly people from populations that have historically faced barriers to economic mobility and advancement. And we actually look at AI from the vantage point of what we think of as clear-eyed optimism. We think that as a technology, it actually has tremendous potential to reshape the future of learning and work in ways that can make us all better off, which is really the watchword for us increasingly. But there's a lot that we have to get right to make that happen. And we are starting to see accelerated use of AI, both in people's personal lives, in learning, at work. That's not necessarily always fully supported. We're not necessarily seeing training for workers or learners percolating into everybody in terms of support for foundational AI literacy. So that's a thing that we need to pay attention to. We're also seeing adoption at the enterprise level, but it's still uneven. There are a lot of organizations that are testing and building AI solutions, some that are adopting, others that are, solutions that are built by others. But even that, while it feels like it's accelerating very fast, it's not everywhere yet. And so I think what that says to us is that we're at an incredibly important moment now that allows us to take the steps that we need to start to prepare. And for us, I think that involves looking at multiple dimensions of artificial intelligence, particularly generative artificial intelligence, which is what you see in tools like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, for instance. And that is both that this is a tool and a platform in and of itself that can reshape the ways in which we interact with technology at work, but also the downstream effects of that will change jobs significantly, as the LinkedIn report that you mentioned cited. And so we're trying to get a handle not just on the importance of skills like foundational AI literacy, for instance, or like the ways in which we're starting to see, AI-enabled platforms pop up in a much more visible way. AI has obviously been with us for quite some time in other forms, but also to start to ask questions about, exactly as you named, Ramona, how are skills going to start to change? And so we are starting to see a lot of these early indications, including exploding demand for just the keyword of artificial intelligence in job descriptions across the economy, not just in STEM careers, for instance, but also that there's still only about a third of workers that are actively actively using AI at work from survey results that we're seeing so far, looking again across the economy and not necessarily just at white collar jobs. So I think the high level message is that while it feels like there's a new piece of news every day and things are moving very fast, we also still do have some time to take steps to prepare. And I think that extends to employers, but also to all of us.
Wendy, could I ask you to weigh in? Wendy Safstrom, she's the president of SHRM Foundation. And for those probably familiar, SHRM is the Association of Hiring Managers. Wendy, there was already concern about AI or algorithms that might screen people out because of age. What are you seeing when it comes to AI, and kind of address that issue as well?
Sure. So there are some actions that you need to take as an HR professional. Just really quickly, a little bit of a story. As I prepared for this interview or the webinar today, I too used ChatGPT and Copilot, you name it, just to ask some questions that I then went and interviewed my CHRO for. And I realized that I too am an older worker. I'm 50 plus, 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 plus. And I admitted to myself that I was one of the last people on my team to really embrace AI. And the aha moment for me truly is when I started seeing response times accelerate from different members of the team of all ages, right? When I started seeing more critical thinking being put to content or output from AI posed questions. And I said, how are you able to accelerate and focus then your energies on the higher and better use of your time, right? Which is more strategy in nature and more human relations in nature. And folks said it's AI. And that's really what prompted me to get involved. And so I think some of the implications for employers, there's a couple of things. But back to your question about algorithms, right? You really need to, on a regular basis, audit those algorithms, right? You have to assess data inputs. You have to ensure that you've got ongoing compliance. You have to monitor for adverse impact when using AI for hiring. More and more people are using, actually 79% of HR professionals are using AI in the recruitment and hiring phase because they are overwhelmed by the number of resumes and CVs and cover letters that are coming through. So we've got to do a better job of making sure that the processes, the tools that we're using aren't excluding individuals, as you mentioned at the top end of your question.
So, Mona, at Generation, you offer training through different partners. Are workers, are older workers really prepared? I want to address this at this point. Are older workers prepared for AI? Because if employers are looking for those people, are the older workers prepared for it?
Well, first I would say employers are not yet prepared for AI. Right. So, the vast majority of employers are rolling out AI tools in the workplace, but most employees are at sea. Why? Because the definition of what are the use cases for how they are supposed to use AI so that we all achieve these much vaunted productivity and quality and time saving gains, et cetera. Like that is still very much at question. So step one is, I think, our places of employment need to be much clearer about how and when and in what ways to use AI. So that's first thing. Second thing, regrettably, and I think many of us on this call know this, that there have been long-seated and deep-seated biases with regards to mid-career and older workers and tech. At Generation, while we train and place people into new jobs across 17 countries, we also do research. And we've done multiple rounds of research across our countries that shows that employers believe that those who are age 45 plus are not as fluid with new technologies, learning new things, etc. And we did another piece of research just last year where we were specifically probing on AI and mid-career and older workers. And we found employers are 3 times less likely to hire someone who is age 60 plus when the role involves AI than someone who is below the age of 35. And so it's actually made these biases worse. So this 3x, so that grew, right? And so that's also troubling. I will though say also, in the bright spot in this survey is that because we surveyed about 1,500 companies and about 2,600 mid-career and older workers, about 15% of those workers, they are not just using AI, they are power users of AI. So they're using it weekly, if not daily, and they're self-taught. Right. And somewhere in there, so the message is you can't wait for your employer to teach you. Like you have to figure it out. It's like I try to set aside 15 minutes of my time every day to just try a new AI tool. My latest is Notebook, right, which is really useful when you want to have synthesis of a large number of a great deal of content. But in any event, so the magic here is much more, don't wait for your employer, begin investing in training yourself through a number of tools that are out there, and then figure out how to apply it to your work. And that might actually turn you into a Sherpa in your workplace to support other colleagues to be able to do the same.
Mary, that brings up something, Mary Cronin with Boston University College. Sorry.
Thank you.
Got to get that correct. That brought up something you talked about in an earlier conversation we had, which was that there are AI tools out there that maybe can also coach you. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, well, Ramona, thank you for Boston College. And actually, the tool I mentioned, I will talk about it. I think I wasn't clear, or maybe you took away a more hopeful. That tool is for coaches to have a coaching AI version of themselves.
I did take away a more hopeful version of
Yes.
that.
I would really echo what Mona is saying and boost it because my work is in teaching entrepreneurship and researching solopreneurs and founders of all ages. And so, as you can imagine, and call out to Barbara Brooks, who put right away in the chat, I use AI all the time. And I know Barbara is the founder of her own company. And I think founders of small companies and solopreneurs are great models of what everyone has been saying, in that those of us who are entrepreneurial, we dive in, we want to try new things, and that rhetoric about making yourself more productive, more efficient, doing multiple things at once, using your time effectively for the critical features of advancing your company, those are things that solopreneurs don't have a choice about. If they don't figure that out early in their company, they're going to burn out and they're not going to make the decisions they need to make about how to reach customers, serve their purpose, and grow revenues. And it turns out AI is an incredible tool. I saw someone else in the chat mention Co-Intelligence, which is a great book. I recommend it for using AI in business and understanding how if you are in a company, how those around you are thinking about using AI. So for solopreneurs, I think AI is essential today, and most people are looking at it, if not actively using it. So it's a group that's ahead of the curve in adoption, and I think really is proving that rhetoric about making us more effective and more efficient. And I love Wendy, your how did people get to be so productive on my team? What am I missing? Well, I was in a workshop at Boston College for faculty about using AI a few weeks ago, and the data is very similar. For the faculty, less than half of faculty are actively using AI and designing and managing their courses or in doing their research. And 90% of the students are using AI in one way or another. And so I think this don't let there be a gap is part of what my deep belief is for everyone who's here today, in that this is something that is new to everyone. I mean, generative AI is changing daily. And so nobody knows it all. Nobody has used the latest tools. It's impossible. So we can be on an equal field here if we do what is being said, like take the time to really experiment with the tools. A lot of them have free versions. And to me, that is something that every person can do on their own or take a course. Or yes, Ramona, sorry, there isn't a great like free how to use AI that I can recommend, works infallibly, but there are hundreds of how to use AI tutorials that are free and that are worth trying. So that is, I think that is something that we can all do to make this less mysterious and more valuable in our career, as well as in helping others be that Sherpa, be that person who tries out something new and shares the good news.
I want to add something on tools. I just read in this LinkedIn report this morning. It's called Skills on the Rise 2025. They're offering a free LinkedIn Learning course through April 18th. So for all of you on LinkedIn, which I would imagine many of you are, go look at their story on their website today, on LinkedIn today, LinkedIn Pulse. It's also on our website at workingnation.com. You can find a link to it there. But I thought that was a useful tool to take that course. It gives you the basics. It's not teaching you how to use specific ones, but it gives you the basics of it to get started for those who, and I'm one of those people. I have not used it. My husband has used GPT, but I have not yet, and I know I should. All of my colleagues are doing it as well. I do want to get down into a little bit more practical. Do you, like Mona, is there a course? I know like IBM Skills Build has some courses. I know Coursera. Do you have anything at Generation yet that you're doing?
Absolutely. So we've created, so we're actually embedding AI on a couple of different dimensions. I mean, so one is we've created a generalist AI module. So it sounds similar to like AI foundational literacy. And that we've embedded into all 40 of the professions that we offer across our countries. We're also offering it to our alumni as well. We have about 130,000 alumni across the world. So that's one. And then we found that there are some professions where you do actually need to know how to learn specific tools. So if you are a software developer, best that you know Copilot and so on. And so there are about 10 professions where we've created AI specific tracks for it. But I'll say also just more broadly, the impact of AI in the workplace, there are a couple of things happening. I mean, one is that it's reducing the number of entry-level vacancies that we see in multiple professions. And then what's interesting, and this could actually help mid-career and older workers, is that for a lot of so think of AI agents, so for these tools, you actually need people with experience and pattern recognition and judgment and so on to be able to make sure that it's doing what it should be doing. And so although, there is also for us okay, so how do we prepare our mid-career and older workers to be able to take on that type of a role with regards to the AI tools that are being used? So how can we take what is currently viewed as a regrettable negative, right? Which is, you're just not going to learn this technology, et cetera. But actually, no, your experience plus being fluid in this technology makes you more valuable in this role. So those are some of the things that we're grappling with.
Can I jump in? Actually,
Why
just
not? Go ahead. Oh,
Yeah,
this
go
is a
ahead.
point that I saw Palma make in the chat earlier, which is that as people gain experience in their careers, and particularly domain expertise, it will be easier for you to spot where, especially the very large language models that scrape the internet for the entirety of the internet, come out with errors. And one of the things that we're hearing and seeing constantly, and I'm sure others are as well, is that it is that intersection of domain knowledge and of the ability to use AI tools that will be the true accelerant. One panelist at our Horizons session last year said you need to minor in technology, but what's your major going to be? And if you're pursuing a career in a particular space, that actually I think is increasingly going to be a question at the other end of the career development spectrum for early career workers who will be expected to use these tools, but may not necessarily have fully developed some of the domain knowledge that you need to be able to do exactly what Palma just described. And that's, I think, going to be a real pressure point for workers at the early career, but for workers with experience and domain knowledge that can exercise that kind of critical thinking and judgment to be able to critically evaluate the outputs of AI and make the right strategic decision on the basis of those outputs, to be able to distinguish what good looks like, for instance, in a more fine-grained way than someone with less expertise. That is an incredible competitive advantage, I think, for workers in the mid and later careers. And so, it's all the more reason to dig into AI. I think that's something to lean forward when you are seeing AI come out with potential concerns, both because there are ways to try to get better outputs from prompting techniques, but also because as this starts to percolate into work, that's going to be an incredible advantage for people exactly like you.
And Alex, I just want to mention a real world experience of that. I mentioned increased or enhanced productivity. What I also got was a lot of enhanced in accelerated productivity that was basically a report out of whatever AI came up with, right? Without that real focus on domain knowledge, thought leadership, leveraging years of experience that someone may just not have as a result of where they are in their professional career. So we took that as a teaching and training moment to say, you've turned out a lot of stuff, you're using the technology, super proud of you for doing that, and you're leading the way with your peers in that space. But let's take a look at this and then see how you can make that work your own, or how you can work with different parts of the organization or folks within your team, maybe a couple of levels up, just to massage it a little bit and make it more in the voice of SHRM or SHRM Foundation. So absolutely, it accelerated production, but if people didn't take a a deeper dive into what was actually being produced in an effort just to hand something off, that's where we were running into problems.
So how do you demonstrate, and maybe Wendy, you can start this part of the conversation too, but how do you demonstrate not only your knowledge of that AI, but also your broader knowledge that we're talking about here, your learned experience on the job, when you are trying to present yourself to a hiring manager, an employer, to say, I can do this job? What are you looking for? How do you set yourself up?
I think you need to, technology is just, it's an entry in, right? I think that as an older worker, you have to highlight success stories. You have to tell personal stories. You need to talk about your skills as they've developed and grown. You need to bring work product that folks can review. It's not just about the technology. The technology can get you in the door, but it's what you do with that, how you apply everything that you've learned as a result of your years in a particular career or job, and make it real and make it in your voice. And so I think demonstrating or talking through how you started with AI or the technology, what you got as a result of that, and then what you did to make it your own and put in your own voice and the voice of the organization, just to talk through what your process is, I think would be really helpful. I'd be curious to see what others think of that.
I'd just like to chip in that, at the student level, everyone knows they have to make a portfolio of their achievements and what they've learned and what they're bringing to their early career search. And I've been advising my friends and colleagues who are in the job market to create their own portfolios using AI tools. So there's a great video tool, Optus AI, which you can, create highlight videos, and it turns it into a really polished, there is a free version, as there are for so many other things. Create your own video, create your own story, use AI. It's a great way to demonstrate that you know how to use a variety of AI tools, that you can learn on your own if you don't know that, and then create that portfolio that showcases what Wendy and Ramona have said, your experience, but put it into a portfolio you made using AI. And that's a really compelling package I noticed a number of questions also in the chat about, well, if you are looking for a job, how do you get people to listen to you? Like, how do you talk about everything you know? Well, you can't, but AI is really a tool you can use here to do that in a way that is unique to you. It's not generic, and it will highlight that you are fluent in this language and these tools when you're applying for a job.
You know, Mary, it made me think a lot of entrepreneurs, I think the average age, if I recall, for someone starting a job is 40 plus. So they have that, 20 years of work experience, maybe 20 years, and they're applying that to a specific area that they know. And a lot of people 40 plus, 50 plus start new businesses because of this concern about age bias and feeling that they can't find a job. Just a thought there, because I do write a lot about older workers as well. So how do we move forward? It's obviously everybody needs some type of AI experience in this future as we move forward. And we've been talking kind of, I think, on a professional level, but how do we move forward for the people who maybe are not at that professional level, who maybe are in lower income jobs or lower wage jobs? How do we help them advance, given that most of these skills AI is going to be very much a part of our workplace? I know kind of threw that out there because I've been thinking about it the last 24 hours. There's a lot of people out there who are not on the professional level, and they're going to be impacted by this. Any thoughts?
So Ramona, when you say professional level, you mean like white collar workers? Is that
White collar workers, because I think this is going to impact them more than it's going to create maybe more opportunity for white collar workers and maybe less for blue collar workers.
well? So let me address. I mean, so essentially, as we train and place people across the world, we are putting them into a wide array. I can't speak today. A wide array of jobs. And so, for example, if you are at a call center, I mean, I see some call centers who are now using AI, and they will not need about 60, 70, 80% of their workers moving forward. So it actually, in the domain of customer service, and also in what I'll call soft tech roles, I mean, it's actually going to be quite extensive, the impact in terms of whether there is a job for you or not. So I would just say, like, I think it's much more beyond like the consultants, the bankers, the accountants, the lawyers. This is going to be quite heavily felt across the board, and across countries. So although the U.S. may be feeling more of the immediate pressure, believe me, it's also coming in emerging markets, and we're feeling that there as well. So that's, I guess, first thought. Second thought, though, and this is, for someone who is facing multiple barriers wherever they are in the world, the answer is not different in terms, so when we surveyed our alumni, we did that because they're not the lawyers, the consultants, the bankers, et cetera, which is what most of these surveys about AI impact has been about. Literally 75% of them are using AI on a weekly basis. And that is true across countries, that is true across sectors. And the vast majority of them are self-taught. And that's just what we had a conversation about earlier. So the answer isn't different, but here's the most important, though, aspect of it. you have to have a mindset to learn rapidly, because the tech is not stopping. I mean, essentially, like, I'll just use AI agents as an example. 6 to 8 months ago, none of us were really talking about AI agents except for, people who are in tech. Now it's all anyone can talk about. 6 to 8 months from now, it's going to be something else, right? And so you have to have a mindset of, okay, this is some new thing, let me dive in. And that cuts across income, countries, you name it. And that's what's going to be most important. And to the point of the discussion that we were having earlier about how do you demonstrate to an employer that you can add value? Show how you have learned to use a wide array of technologies, AI or otherwise, over your career, and how that has evolved. Like, that is actually the most important aspect, because no one is going to have mastery over whatever is the new technology, and no one's going to have experience in it. But we know there was going to be a new wave coming.
Just to add to that, because I could not agree more, Mona, I think this scrambles the way that we think about the value of work and the nature of jobs in ways that we can't fully predict today. So, there have been a lot of questions, and I agree with Mona that we're unlike in past waves of automation. One of the signal ways in which AI is projected to be different is its potential impact on the professional class, or the white collar class, with big air quotes around those terms. And one of the potential reasons for that, and we're seeing some of this in our early work, is the potential for AI to elevate and uplift skills that we would think of as uniquely human skills, whether you call them soft skills or durable skills, but anything that is about how we relate to and connect to one another as human beings, who are, should be the ultimate benefactors of any work that any of us is doing, theoretically. And again, these are likely skills that people in their mid or later careers have had more at bats to be able to develop more fully, which again, I think is a tremendous competitive advantage. But I think there are potentially lots of question marks about how jobs will evolve. I'll give you one example, which is heavy tractor trailer truck drivers, long haul truck drivers. If there's a world in which AI starts to lift up the ways in which human skills are valued in those jobs, is it possible, especially as we start to move towards autonomous vehicles, especially in long haul driving over time, where the need for the person is less to have a person manning a particular truck behind a wheel, but actually what you need is a person to engage in the customer service work that we know is a part of that job, but it's latent, it's not the primary function of that job. So could a truck driver essentially become a customer service worker in the context of transportation? Maybe, right? And, could we see higher returns to care work, teaching work, coaching and counseling work, any work that involves how we work with and act on one another as humans? Possibly. And that would be really encouraging, because a lot of times that labor has not been highly valued by society, right? Or in economic settings. And so we're trying to be open to the wide range of outcomes here. And as Mona said, and everyone has said, to think about how all of us, both employers who are seeking people for these roles and are driving how the roles shift over time, but also workers themselves who are engaged in this sort of micro job crafting day in and day out as we, iterate on our jobs, how we can come together around how we can use these technologies in ways that ultimately, if it's displacing some work that's done by people, it's ultimately not displacing the value of the human contribution. And that's the piece that I think we know, but that we don't know as well as we should, in order to construct the kind of future of work for ourselves that we need to. But one thing I am convinced of is that workers who are in the mid or later careers are going to be a really key part of that puzzle.
Yeah, and I have another real world example. Back when folks were just figuring out e-commerce and building websites, I worked for Leo Burnett Advertising, and I was doing recruiting for their online web development division. And we were recruiting for positions that did not exist, right? So while some of the work may have changed in terms of the jobs, to move commerce to become e-commerce and building websites, which sounds very ancient, it kind of sounds like that too. We had to figure it out. So while it would eliminate or mitigate or minimize some jobs that existed previously. Brand new jobs emerged, and we were drafting job descriptions on the fly, talking about the kinds of skill sets we needed to take what have been traditionally a paper and pencil or print medium online. And so I think that this will have similar impact. I don't think we figured it out yet, but that is certainly something to consider.
Actually, the number 1 or number 3 skill on that LinkedIn was top rising skills, adaptability. So exactly what you're saying. Mary, you wanted to add something?
I'll just add from the real world and historical perspective, because Wendy, I was there writing about doing business on the internet in the 90s and went through the whole dot-com bubble and crash. And the nature of technology is that it gets easier to use, which is the good news for those of us who are interested in keeping up with AI. It's easier now than it was 6 months ago. And by the end of 2025, there will be more tools where you don't need to figure out how to use AI. You just have to tell AI what you want it to do for you. And I think that's a really important thing to bear in mind, that this is your servant. This is your ticket to do what you want to do and have more time to do it. And that's a mindset. I know that's an idealistic description right now of AI, but put that into your mind. It's not your enemy. It's not this formidable mountain that needs to be climbed. Just put something into AI chatbot prompt box. We all had to learn how to use Google, and now, as someone pointed out, people don't even use Google. They're using AI to find what they want to find, and so it's going to be the same. It's up to us to figure out how we advance our goals, our purpose, for our own careers and for what we believe in for overcoming digital inequality. And there's tools out there that will allow us to do that. And to me, yes, we're in a really disruptive transition phase right now, but the reality is, in 2 years, everybody will be using AI, and most people won't even think about it as using AI. So, how you want to position yourself and take advantage of the opportunities is, again, from where I am for entrepreneurship, it's amazing and really empowering. And it's going to really make it possible for many, many more people to be successful in running their own small business. And that's really exciting. And I could give you 100 examples already of people who are doing that. And it's really changed their ability to go from just wishing they could be a business owner to actually making enough money to support themselves as a business owner and to help other people if that's part of their goal.
I want to make sure we have time. Doug, I invite you back in here to share with us some questions from our audience, the people who have joined us.
Well, I want to first remind people that this is your chance to ask a question. And if you will put a Q or question in front of your question, that will help us spot it. One that has come through is how can job seekers demonstrate that they have AI knowledge, and what would be of greatest value to an employer to see? Is it certifications? Is it on-the-job experience? What's the best way to characterize your knowledge and awareness of AI tools?
Just quick answer. I think it's essential, as you said, to go beyond simply kind of claiming that you have familiarity with concepts, and we're embarking on a huge push at the foundation towards skills first futures. And so I think just showing, if you've gotten AI related certifications and courses, that you've come prepared, and perhaps you've self-prepared by pursuing things like Google AI's machine learning crash course, or the other things we've been talking about, actually demonstrating, putting your portfolio together with a demonstration that you have that mastery, in addition to articulating what it is you've learned and how you've applied it, is one way definitely to go.
I would just add that to what Wendy described. There are a fair number of interviews now that are actually demonstration based, right? You know, so you actually have to show your skills live in whatever setting. And that, frankly, is the best way to show that you know how to use these tools in whichever context, even more so than a piece of paper saying that you know how to use it, because, you know, paper can be confusing. And give mixed signals as to what you know or don't know. So I would also try to find opportunities where you can have demonstration-based interviews.
I like that concept. I hadn't heard about the demonstration, skills demonstration kind of job portion of a job interview.
Unfortunately for people, that's really late stage when they've already been screened in. And I think for most people, part of this question is like how to not be screened out. And there, I think in addition to the certifications, the courses you've taken, the self-education you've done, I would say it's very important. How have you used it? To put that into your application. What have you achieved by using AI? What specific thing have you done? Obviously, best if it's related to the job you're applying for. But that's a key piece for right now, to be able to honestly say, I did this, you know, I created this agent. I created a set of prompts that really allows anyone to do this kind of research. All of that can fit into your application letter. And so mentioning your certification and skills, and also what you have concretely done that relates to the type of job you're applying for.
I think that's right. And would just add, especially as it is still early and this is growing, you know, it may also, especially for the questions around how do you make it past the filters, it may also just be as simple as listing keywords like artificial intelligence or AI or some of the tools in the resume. And that is not to say that you don't need to do everything else that everybody has mentioned, because you should not list a skill that you don't have, and you need to be able to back it up. But I feel like part of what we're seeing in the early days is that it obviously, because it is context specific and it depends tremendously on what the job is. If you are applying for a job as a machine language scientist, you need a different kind of AI expertise, obviously. Then, for instance, if you're applying for a job as a digital marketing specialist within a very small business, for example, what we're hearing in early stages from employers is that as they are still figuring out what their own applications for AI are, oftentimes they are seeking to hire people with AI skills so that they can figure it out together. And so it really doubles down on the importance of the context of the job that you're applying for. And to be able to say, you know, not only do I have these skill sets, but I understand what it would look like, or I have some ideas of how to leverage these skill sets in the context that I'm applying for. And depending on where you are, that could look like I know how to use GitHub Copilot, as I think Mona was talking about before, and some of the really highly specialized tools. Or, you know, I've been a small business owner and I've been experimenting using AI to help me build a marketing plan or a business plan or something like that, just because it is going to be so different based on the context. And so the openness, I think, starting by signaling that you have the skills in the first place. You know, we know use is growing, but it's not universal. So I think even just that is, if that's reassuring to people, my fellow panelists might disagree with me, but I think even just the signal that you have these skills, that you've taken time to start to develop them, should hopefully be a positive thing for employers that are searching for these kinds of skills. And then the key is to be able to back it up for the context for which you're applying specifically.
You know, I'd like to add one thing here. I spoke to someone at Morgan Stanley at work. They did a survey of employees, and one of the things they said was they wanted their bosses to tell them what they needed to know so they could advance. Because we've been talking a lot about people applying for jobs, but also there are plenty of mid-career and older workers in jobs currently that also need these skills. And while employers are trying to figure out how they want to use it, they need to also communicate that to their current employees so they understand what they need to learn to have advancement.
Absolutely.
Doug, do we have any more questions?
Yes, Lynn is asking a question about how AI is complicating the job search process itself. And his question basically is what happens when all of the resume writing and other job search bots are coming into contact with the hiring screening bots, and what that does in terms of authenticity, in terms of numbers, in terms of chances.
Well, I
Someone
don't have a specific data point, Lynn, but it's a great question. And one thing that a lot of AI training is going into is how to detect other AIs.
Mhm.
And so that loop may be self-defeating. The same as in the university setting, a lot of AI work is going into how to detect that students are using AIs to write their papers. So I think that there will be actually a premium on genuine humanity in applications. And although I agree that, you know, showing your skill set and showing your savviness with AI is going to be essential to get through the screening first filter, I think that the resumes and applications that rise to the top are going to be actually breaking the mold of an AI generated resume in some way.
Somebody asked me this question last week, and one of the things we talked about was tailoring your resume, just customizing your resume for job applications by making sure you're incorporating keywords from the job description itself, right? Because the ATS looks for specific skills, qualifications, and experience that are kind of mentioned as part of that particular job. So if those match exactly, that if the job description lists specific AI technologies like machine learning, ensure that those terms are also present in your resume, provided obviously you have experience with them. So it doesn't have to be, the resume has to be as aesthetically beautiful, but you need to really highlight and be very crystal clear as to the skill sets that you're bringing to the table, because those ATS systems are going to be looking for a skills section where you can indeed and should be listing technical proficiencies.
And Paul is asking a question along those lines, which is how do you balance the need to demonstrate AI proficiency with the skills that you've talked about in terms of wisdom, experience, strategy, the kinds of things that are necessary to demonstrate ability to manage AI outputs.
So you have to do both, right? You know, this is not an either or, which may be a dissatisfying answer, but you essentially have to show that you are fluent in the relevant technologies. And I'm saying technologies deliberately. In some cases, it's AI, in some cases, it's other things. And in some cases, it's showing your trajectory in use of a variety of technologies. And you have to show that you have domain experience in whatever it is. And you also have to show that for this specific role, if it's a management role versus an individual contributor or whatever it is, that you have appropriate experience and to do that successfully. The reality behind, I think, what multiple of us are saying is the number of people who are applying to jobs has gone up dramatically. And yes, they are using AI to support cover letters, interviews, etc. On the other hand, then if you're an HR team, you are getting deluged with a lot of applications. And by the way, the number of jobs has largely gone down. So you're getting many more applicants on average, right, than you used to. So now you're deploying ATS in order to deal with this. And then ATS is looking for the very, it's looking for like the 95% match, not the 60% match, right? And so this is the vicious cycle that we're in at the moment. And it's messy, right? And it's, and you have to think that it's going to take 6 months to get a job, as opposed to it's going to take 3 months to get a job. And so the sharper you can make the match, the more likely you are to break through the noise.
One other thing to add to this in this context, but I think broadly speaking in terms of professional development, is show your cover letter or your resume to somebody who knows you really well and say, does this sound like me? Does this reflect what you know about me and my experience? And I make that point because one thing that we're paying close attention to as our others is the evolution of social capital development in the context of AI. And again, as a point of interest, I think, or potential strength for later career workers who have had more time in the world to build up your networks and social capital. We know how critical social capital can be to getting a job. And that is not necessarily limited to, do you know somebody who might potentially hire you, or do you have a friend, who knows a guy, but can be to lean on your networks to help you navigate some of these spaces. And so I do think, again, coming back to this idea of how do we zero in on what's uniquely human, Lori put in the chat, I can spot AI written cover letters. I do think that's going to get harder and easier and harder and easier as the technology evolves. But I hear a lot of the same thing from employers as well, is that they have seen the same cover letter over and over again and they reject them out of hand. And there's something about, I think, what we know of one another, especially for those of us that know us well, to say like, yeah, that sounds like Alex, or no, that actually doesn't sound like you. So that could be it's the non-technical check, but that could be an easy check that also serves to reinforce some of these really critical social networks that are so important for us in our professional lives and our personal lives, candidly.
We have about 3 minutes left, so I'd love to go around our panel and ask for some final thoughts. And Mary, let's start with you.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks to everyone. And my final thought is use AI. Use it in your life, use it to do things that you want to accomplish anyway, use it in your current job, use it to think about starting a new company if you have an entrepreneurial gene. We are in the era of AI, and it's not going backwards, and all of us need to be using it and putting it to use in the context of what benefits us and benefits the people around us. So go for it.
Mona?
I'm just going to repeat something that I said earlier, is lean into learning things that are uncomfortable, new, different, and just make this muscle memory. Because the pace of change that we are currently experiencing is quite unprecedented. And we have to change with it.
Wendy?
I think that looking at AI as a tool that can extend careers, it can unlock new opportunities for folks that can make work more accessible for older professionals. I think the key is we have to help shift the narrative from talking about AI as a barrier to AI being an enabler, especially for experienced professionals, and then provide them the opportunities in which they can access that learning. And that's what has worked here, was providing those opportunities to everyone to sample, to experience it, to experiment. And that got people excited about it and got people bought in on the early side.
Alex?
What everybody else said, and as a later career or mid-career worker, your wisdom, your judgment, your critical thinking, your past experience, your networks, and your ability to connect with others is your superpower. And AI is a tool to unlock those possibilities. And so I think the more that we can turn this thinking on its head to say, yes, learn, be adaptable, and also to ask questions of AI that tap into the ways in which you are uniquely positioned to judge whether or not the output that it's giving you is right, is what you're looking for, is the right question or the right answer for your business. You are uniquely positioned to that in a way that a lot of other people that are competing for some of these same jobs are not. And so keep learning, keep refreshing your skills, build the muscle, but don't lose sight of the fact that that truly is going to be, I think, a very meaningful competitive advantage in the years to come.
I just want to make a very quick comment. If you get a chance to see the Wall Street Journal from Monday? Yeah, March 17th. There was a very good article, Joe Papard. He said most companies should not have an AI strategy. He said they're missing the point. The CEOs get real proud to say, I got an AI center of excellence, but they forget the fact of they need a compelling strategy to be competitive in their market. So kind of a 20,000 foot view. AI unto itself doesn't mean anything. It means that learning and experience and the value you bring to a company so that they can achieve their strategic objective. So I thought it was a nice perspective. I mean, it's a higher level than this has been an excellent presentation, by the way, but I think if you get a chance to read that, it's a nice perspective to, you know, really say what's a company, why do they exist, right? And just because they have an AI strategy, they could be losing in the market.
David, thank you. I'm going to break in because we are at 1 o'clock. And I do want to thank our panel for an excellent conversation and very insightful and helpful perspective. I also want to thank our sponsors again, the Delmar Encore Fellows Initiative at the Dayton Foundation and GraySource. We will be sending out a lot of information to you in the next couple of days, including information about upcoming programs. This is one of many that we will be offering over the next several weeks, and more of that information to come.